Hey everybody, it is time for this week's Market Snapshot. What has happened in the Northern Virginia real estate market in the last 7 days in under 5 minutes? Here we go. Okay, so I again am doing this by myself this week. We have a busy weekend, so Kelly is off taking care of the kids and doing what needs to be done there. But I wanted to get these numbers out to you. The market is it's an interesting market right now because statistically you're going to see that it says one thing, but feeling wise there's a little bit of a difference on how the market feels. So for example, we have on our street, we have a house that's been on the market now for about 3.5 weeks. A couple blocks away from us, we have another house that's been on the market for about the same amount of time. And then in the other direction, another couple blocks, there's a house that's been on the market for over 2 weeks in a neighborhood that they sell really, really quickly. All three of these neighborhoods 6 months ago were selling like in the first weekend. So you're going to see statistically that we're still in a seller's market, but we are starting to see properties that are taking a little bit longer to sell. But it's not all properties, because in that same little triangle that I just explained to you, there's another house that was actually the highest price house that went under contract in 10 days. So properties are moving, the buyers are out there, but it just feels a little bit calmer. And statistically, we're still in a seller's market, but the market just feels calmer. So let's dive into this. Let's look and see what's going on. All right, so as always, the black line is our demand. These are the buyer activity of what happens in the last 7 days. So this means that these are the properties that went under contract or went pending or active under contract. Those are the two statuses. So this gives us just a brief rundown. These numbers are important because this gives us real-time data versus looking at sold data, which can be older. We're looking at properties that just went under contract and properties that just came on the market. That way we can see real-time data and make real-time decisions. When you looked at sold data, quite often that number can be up to 75 days old, so that's not going to guide you in the current market. So we're using these numbers to guide us as we go through the market today. So our demand actually took a little bit of a dip this last weekend, or this last 7 days, and our inventory took a dip again for the second week in a row. Now, the reason I believe that the demand took this dip is if you look here, we had inventory was kind of flattening out, and then it took a huge jump. Okay, right after it took that huge jump, a week later, buyer activity took a huge jump. Then inventory took a dip, and then a dip. Buyer activity took a dip. So buyer activity in the seller's market tends to lag behind inventory or supply by about a week, just because there's inventory to buy or not buy. But you can still see that the demand is higher than what the supply is. So demand is still higher than supply. So this gap is in between demand versus supply has put us into this seller's market. So we're still sitting in a seller's market, but it's kind of a flat seller's market. When I say flat, I mean this versus what we're looking at here. So this was a much stronger seller's market last year at this time. You can actually see that the activity of the market is a little bit higher. You can see that that's a little bit higher. Those are the homes that have been selling. It's actually a little bit higher than it was last year. So the activity is very strong, but because of there being inventory there, the strength of the seller's market is not as strong, and buyers actually have options. So we just put a buyer under contract. They did compete against another offer, but they only had to pay asking price for the property, and they got all their contingencies. So that's the kind of things that buyers are looking at, is they're still paying top market value, but it's a fair market value. They're not having to bid up higher on most properties, and they can still get some protections in there. In fact, we had 35% of the contracts in Northern Virginia last week had an inspection contingency. And we've been hovering around that 30 to 37% range now for several weeks. So we are seeing some inspection contingencies. The majority are not getting them. About 45%, I believe, of the properties are going under contract within the first 7 days, and about 44% of properties are going at above asking price. So those ones that are priced right and are in great condition to match the pricing, they're going under contract pretty quickly, and they're going above asking price. But the rest of them are staying on the market for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and are selling either at asking price or maybe a little bit low if they're overpriced. So So it's a very fair market for buyers. From a seller's perspective, it's a great time to get out there and sell because the buyer demand is there. You can see it. But you've got to price it right. You've got to have it in the right condition, make sure it's staged appropriately, and you're actually competing in the market. Buyers have choices, so you want to compete. And if you compete right, you can actually get certainly top market value, but it maybe even get a little bit above that and get some bid up action. So going down here to the seller's market versus the buyer's market, you can see that we still are in that seller's market. It's just not nearly as strong as it was last year. So following this trend as we go into June and July, we should stay at least for the next couple weeks at a decent seller's market. So I would expect us to kind of hover around here. And then as we go into July, we'll kind of go down and approach that neutral market. And I think that this year we'll probably hover right about here. So it's still going to be a seller's market. It's just not going to be a chaotic seller's market. So again, it's a great time for buyers and it's still a good time for sellers. If you have any questions, if you would like, as a buyer, if you would like a strategic session where we can sit down with you, show you how to secure the best interest rates, show you how to find, off-market properties and get you access to all the properties that are on the market, especially with the new rules that are coming out, and then just kind of help you walk through a good sound strategy to make sure that you're protected as you go through this market. We'd be happy to do that at no charge. If you're looking to sell, we'd be happy to come over, do a walkthrough of the house, give you a staging consult, let you know what updates you might want to do, what's going to give you the best return on your investment, and then give you a good idea about what your property value might be worth. You may be surprised with what the values are worth right now, just after the last several years of appreciation. Again, we're willing to do that at no charge. We like getting out and working with people, and then, some of you may work with us, some of you may not, you may use other agents, but at least we get to get out and meet you and start that relationship. So if you have any questions or you'd like to set up one of these consults, we'd be more than happy to do that. Number is 703-783-2143. We'll talk to you guys next week and we'll see what the market is trending at that point. Talk to you soon.